Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Saturday, it's December 14th. Today is day 435. I'm grateful to Fael, who's been my voice as I've been sick. I'm getting better day by day. Thank you so much to all of you for your prayers. So 435 days. Yesterday in Gaza, an Israeli strike on a post office that's been turned into a shelter killed at least 33 people and wounded 50. According to medics, the death toll's now risen to 66. Israel said that they were targeting a member of the Islamic Jihad. The Israeli Human Rights Organization focused on access issues related to Gaza. Its organization is Gisha. We work closely with them at Churches for Middle East Peace. I wanted to summarize some of what they've been saying about what's happening in Gaza. We're so close to Gisha that their executive director, Tanya Harry, is actually featured in our CMEP promotional video. So these are from Tanya, their executive director, and from Gisha. So they were talking about the U.S. demand letter that went out in October to Israel, saying that the U.S. would withhold arms from Israel if more aid did not get into Gaza. You'll remember there was a lot of hoopla about that. And there were questions about whether or not there might be steps in the right direction. I was quite reticent to thinking that this would have any forward progress. I said we shouldn't hold our breaths, and the conclusion now, several weeks later, is that the U.S. has completely failed at following through. So Gisha provided the status update about Gaza crossings and a report on how Israel has done in terms of implementations in response to the U.S. demands. So first, currently the only crossing operating in any consistent and regular way is Zakim, or Erez West. This is where UN agencies and partners can collect approximately 50 to 60 trucks per working day with food aid prioritized. The aid has been blocked from going to the North Gaza government since October 1st, and it's not going south of the Netzarim. This means that people in the North can't leave. You'll recall the general's plan, there's that whole question of how much it's being implemented. People who move in the North without permission are considered enemy combatants. They're shot at. In large part, the situation in the North is so horrific, food distribution is incredibly low. Erez and Erez East has been closed since September 30th. So the two northern crossings have not been known to operate simultaneously at any given point since this Zakim crossing was opened. The humanitarian situation in Gaza is worsening despite pressure from the U.S. administration and other world actors. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. The Kisufim crossing, which was one of the ones that was opened, that it was like, yay, look, Israel opened a new crossing. That was one of the only things that was a positive step by this Blinken-Austin letter pressure. Israel did open that crossing, but it didn't increase any capacity. So what? There have been security issues that have impeded attempts for humanitarian access. There's now displacement orders in the area of the Kisufim crossing, which affects passage at the crossing. Regarding the implementation of U.S. demands, Israel recently granted approvals for more drivers to use different access roads. Great, that's great. So guess what happens? 92 trucks attempted to use these different routes, and 32 of those trucks were rejected or turned around. So new access roads are opened up, but then they're not allowed to be used. UN agencies and their partners continue to struggle to pick up aid at Kerem Shalom, or Kerem Salam, on the Palestinian side of the crossing because there's a complete breakdown of public order. UNRWA announced that they're not even going to attempt to bring in aid. It's just too dangerous. It's Israel's responsibility to provide security because they're currently the occupying power who's taking control of the area, and they're just not doing it. I wanted to talk for a minute about dual-use items. These are items that require pre-approval to be allowed into Gaza, and it's vitally needed equipment. Since October 2023, Israel massively ramped up its already severe restrictions on what can enter the Strip. Many items require pre-approval, and then even still, if they're pre-approved, they are subject to denials, delays, and refusals. Dual-use items are denied access to Gaza. Dual-use items are things that could be used for dual purposes. Cement. It can be used for good things like buildings, or it could be used for things like building bombs, right? Well, things show up on these dual-use lists like flashlights, generators, medical equipment, tent poles. Those are dual-use items. You should know that there are items in the past that have showed up on the dual-use list, like cilantro. Yes, it's a vegetable, right? So I wanted to talk a minute about this. Following the October letter from Blinken and Austin, Israel advised aid organizations they would no longer need pre-approval for a number of winterization items. Winter's coming, it's cold, it's rainy in Gaza. So Israel said, hey, we're going to do better. We're going to, help provide support to these, million plus people living in tents. We're going to take things off the pre-approval list. Listen to some of the items that are still on the pre-approval list. They're considered dual use. Tent leveling platforms, working tools and tent kits, nutrition supplements for animals, desalination devices, ovens, mobile and immobile storage units, veterinary equipment, consumables for the maintenance of water, sewer devices, systems, sewage pumps, systems related to rainwater collection, hydrochloride, chloride tablets, whitewash, filters for desalination. Now listen to this one. This is the one that kills me. This is still a dual-use item. Personal protective gear, water-resistant clothing, raincoats, boots, and goggles. Those are all dual-use items. Regarding the Philadelphia corridor, Egypt's been trying to get it to reopen the Rafah border. The Philadelphia corridor initially proved to be a relative success. Last week, Israel allowed it to be used for the very first time to transfer aid on December 10th. But a few days ago, then they opened it up for aid, and then Israel reportedly carried out strikes on pre-approved security forces guarding the aid. So Israel allowed aid to be brought in, and then there were strikes carried out against it. There were 32 people killed. It led to 72 out of 73 trucks that were brought in to being looted. So that's an update on what's happening in Gaza. Shifting to Syria, it was reported that the U.S. prisoner Travis Timmerman, who was among the thousands released this week from a Syrian prison, was flown out of the country. He disappeared 7 months ago into a former Bashad notorious prison by rebels. Timmerman told the Associated Press he was on a Christian pilgrimage. He said he was not ill-treated while he was in the Palestine branch, a notorious detention facility of the Syrian intelligence. He said he was freed by liberators who came into the prison and knocked down the doors of his cell with a hammer. He was released Monday morning alongside a young Syrian man and 70 women prisoners, some who had children with them. Yesterday, thousands of Syrians gathered in Damascus on the main square, a historic mosque where they had their first Friday prayers since Bashar Assad was overthrown. This was a major symbolic moment for the country's dramatic change of power. The rebels are now working to establish security and start a political transition after the capital was seized Sunday a week ago. Syria's interim government is calling on the UN Security Council to call for Israel to immediately stop its attacks on Syrian territories and to withdraw from the areas it's penetrated in the north in violation of the 1974 disengagement agreement. All the while, Israeli warplanes are continuing to bomb several sites in Syria. Turkey has said its strategic goal in Syria is to eliminate the US-backed Kurdish militia. They're also reopening their embassy in the Syrian capital of Damascus for the first time since 2012. Now, what's going to happen? Some are calling this a fragile hope for the future of Syria. The Guardian has done some great analysis about the Syrian new leader. His Nam Dagur, his name of war, is Abu Muhammad al-Jalani. So Jalani is kind of the nickname for the leader of the regime. His real name is Ahmad al-Shara. He's gone out of his way, according to many, to signal to the West that he won't attack, that he wants a new day for Syria. But let's just talk for a minute about some of the history of Muhammad al-Jalani. That's his war name, Nam Dagur. Jalani fought U.S. soldiers in Iraq between 2003 and 2006. He was incarcerated for 5 years in detention camps there. He returned to Syria in 2011 and played roles in the campaigns of the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Jalani took over the Islamic group Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. We've been talking about them a lot. HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. I don't even know that by memory yet. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS. From 2017, they imposed his rule on 2 million people in the northwestern Syrian enclave of Idlib. So they've had control there since 2017. Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, or HTS. So Jalani has had control there. And then last month, he was the one that launched this rebel coalition that took over in the 12-day campaign that ultimately took control of Damascus on Sunday, overthrowing the Assad regime. So the million-dollar question that's being asked is, how will this man rule Syria? Will he act as Jalani? This group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, is considered a terrorist group by the United States, the UK, and others. There's a $10 million price on his head right now. Or will he become more, the name of like his real name? Will he act more as Ahmad al-Sharaa, who's gone out of his way in recent years to show, that he's not against the West? And so the Guardian asserts that Sharaa, when they use that, his real name, his focus is local. It's on national interests and the greater welfare of Syria, a battered, traumatized, and suffering people. The U.S. Blinken, our Secretary of State, made an unannounced stop in Iraq on Friday, yesterday, aimed at stabilizing the situation in Syria. The hubris of the United States in thinking that we can do anything in the Middle East when we've been such abysmal failures is astounding to me, but that's great. Blinken made a stop. Sorry for my sarcasm. Secretary of State Blinken yesterday also said there was broad agreement between Turkey and the U.S. about what they want to see happen in Syria. And so that's kind of an update of what's happening there. My last request is just please be in prayer for the Tent of Nations and our dear friends, the Nasser family. They're going to court on December 18th. That's their next scheduled date to seek to re-register their land. So as their date approaches, we're calling on the community to pray for them, to pray for that court case, that all would go in their favor. Their motto is, we refuse to be enemies. And Shane Claiborne, in their Advent devotions today, said this prayer: give us courage to choose faith over fear, love over hatred. Help us to believe that your mercy is big enough to transform our enemies into friends. May we live into your vision of a world where we beat our swords into plows, guns into garden tools, and that we study war no more. In the name of the Prince of Peace, Jesus, may it be so. Amen.